On today's Local Matters, we learn why secondhand is a great first choice at local Mystique thrift shop. Visit with grief specialist and author Gary Sturgis and talk about upcoming events and resources in our South Shore towns. I'm Elizabeth Shanahan-Jewett. Let's get started. It's all about the bass at the Plymouth Philharmonic's Perfect Pairs concert on November 5th. The performance will feature former Phil principal bass Susan Hagen performing the North American premiere of Simone Garcia's soulful score for strings, a concerto for amplified double bass. There will also be the performance of Mendelssohn's Symphony No. 3 in A minor, Opus 56. Or the Scottish, known for its energetic finale. The presentation begins at Plymouth North High School Performing Arts Center at 7:30 p.m., but ticket holders may also attend a pre-concert talk by Phil conductor Stephen Caridianis. Get your tickets at plymouthphil.org. Thrift store shopping allows for endless fashion creativity and is also a responsible way to reduce consumerism. There are also few better feelings than the thrill of a good find. We went on the local scene to Local Mystique, a small thrift shop in Plymouth, to chase the thrill.
It was just something that I've been doing for so long, thrifting, and the more I did it, the older I got, the more I started to pick out more quality items, and then basically just kind of realized that I was acquiring all these items that I was then gifting to people, and just kind of realized that maybe we could all put our heads together and, you know, if our friends are liking what we're giving them, then maybe other people will like what we can find too.
Sam has always been a big thrifter, and she's found so many unique items over the years, and hanging out with her, we've learned how to hunt and dig and find those cool things, and you know, we've always wanted to share with other people, and Katie had the idea, and kind of the ball just started rolling, and the momentum was just gradual, and it just took off from there.
We're a thrift art and antique shop. We've been around for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in December, and we sell secondhand items. Sam, our co-owner with us here, she's been big into thrifting her whole life, and we really just wanted to do something together, and we'd go out thrifting and on our own and separately, and just see the things that people had in the businesses, and we really just thought that it would be something fun for us to do, and we didn't think that it would come to fruition anytime in the near future, but once the idea came to us, we really started looking, and we found the place to rent, and then the rest just came together.
It started off with us finding everything. We didn't really accept much of any donations in the beginning. Now we're getting a bit more as time goes on, but with that we have to be more selective because we have such limitations with the space, and we're also trying to have such a specific idea in mind. So yeah, we'll spend hours scouring the internet, Facebook Marketplace. We found a lot of unique things, auctions, yard sales, other thrift stores if we have the time.
You know, I'm always out there hunting at yard sales, estate sales, any curb alerts, anything like that, you know, something that might have ended up at a landfill or in the trash.
Depending on the place, you have to really dig, which is the fun of it all, you know, so if you have the time, then that's probably my favorite way to find stuff, is to just go out and dig for hours.
We really like the concept of using secondhand items. There's a lot of stuff out in the world already, so we feel like having a thrift shop allows people to get items that are already in existence, that are a lot of times a lot cooler than you would get in your big box stores, and it's saving the planet from just more waste and throwing things away.
I mean, we'll reuse everything we get, down to the bags that people bring in with, you know, things that they're selling to us, or, you know, we reuse everything that we can as much as we can. And
if we can find it, clean it up, give it a new home, that's the main mission here.
We have all walks of life, and that's what's so great about it. We have young people, we have older people, just people from all different backgrounds. And so there's certain people who like to buy certain items, but we really have such a huge mix of customers that it's hard to pinpoint a specific type.
Right now I'm seeing a lot of younger kids buying vinyl, more younger kids going for vintage clothing, And then depending on what it is, you know, like our stained glass lamps or like home decor is probably more older people. But yeah, it just depends on what it is, I guess.
But we like to have antiques for the older generation. We like to have fun stuff for younger people. Just try to have a mix of everything. One of my favorite days that I had here was 3 generations of ladies came in, and each one of them was able to find something here, and that made me feel so good.
You're really seeing this upward momentum with the younger kids. It's cool to thrift, and I just think that's so amazing because it always has been cool, but I'm really psyched that people are realizing that finally. So just thrifting in general is like, people are down to reuse things finally, and I'm loving to see it.
We get people that are local to the community. We have people that travel here. They see us online or hear about us from friends and will travel down. We actually had a couple from Sweden that was on vacation here in Plymouth, you know, just stop by randomly, and we got a picture from them, a mirror and a record that we sold them, made it all the way to Sweden, and we got to see it decorated in their living room. So we literally get people from all over the world here.
My favorite piece, I'd say, is the pants that I'm wearing today that I was able to get secondhand, and they were barely used, and I just love them. This is something I would never be able to buy brand new, and I just think that they're so fun and vintage looking.
Oh my God. Well, almost everything I have is thrifted. I would have to say my jackets, like I have so many favorite jackets, and my boots and shoes. It's hard to say which one, but always looking for shoes, and I have such a thing for jackets, and I have some of the most amazing jackets I've ever seen.
This is a thrifted shirt. I love, you know, all the vintage shirts where you get the wolves, the dragons. I love all those kinds of things. I grew up the youngest of 4 boys, so thrifting was, you know, necessary in our house. So, you know, with a limited budget, you know, if you could find something for cheap that was really cool, you know, you couldn't afford to get it brand new at a store. So thrifting was a part of our life.
It's not something I grew up with, but as I got older, it's something that I started doing more of, and really just going to antique shops and just unique, eclectic little shops. And really, as I got older, that's where I got into it more and more. And then Sam was a big influence in that as well, because it's something she's always been passionate about. So she kind of would bring us out, and we'd see what kind of things we could get and the gifts she would give us. And we said, wow, this is a lot cooler than things that we could go out and buy on our own. And so then that's really what got us into it.
It's been like my way of letting off steam for as long as I can remember. I literally got off the highway a few months ago in California because I was overwhelmed by how many lanes there were, and I found the nearest thrift store, and I went there and I spent a couple hours just like letting off steam, and that's what I've always done. Whenever I have spare time, around here especially, eventually I'd have my phone in my hand and I'd start looking up where this came from and how much it's worth, and, you know, the dig and the hunt and the, you know, treasure hunt of it all.
It's going really well. Since we've opened up in the middle of the pandemic, so we didn't really know what to expect, but it's steadily increased. We've had a lot of positive support from the community, and at this point, more and more people know about us, and then the days are getting busier and busier.
We're already talking about our next spot and where it's going to be and how much bigger and how much more space we're going to have for things. I see it going somewhere big, I do.
Visit localmystique.com to plan your downtown visit. Applications are now open for one-time student loan debt relief provided by the U.S. Department of Education. As part of the administration's targeted debt relief to low and middle-income families, the Department of Education will provide up to $20,000 in debt relief to Pell Grant recipients with loans held by the Department of Education, and up to $10,000 in debt relief to non-Pell Grant recipients. Borrowers are eligible for this relief if their individual income is less than $125,000 or $250,000 for households. Visit studentaid.gov for more information on eligibility requirements and to apply before the December 31st deadline. Spirograph, Etch-a-Sketch, Battleship, Monopoly. The toys and games of our childhoods evoke hopefully happy memories and say something about the world we live in. On November 8th at 1:30 p.m., children aged 6 through 11 are invited to Fun and Games with Historic New England at the Plymouth Public Library. Explore pastimes from the Pilgrim era to the first years of the New Republic as you make a toy, solve a riddle, play some games, and learn about how changing times and attitudes change children's toys and activities. Visit the library's website to register. It can be impossible to understand what someone suffering with dementia experiences. On November 9th at 2 p.m., you can learn more by attending Dementia Live, presented at the Pembroke Council on Aging by Bridges by Epoch. Dementia Live is a training tool that simulates how dementia affects the senses, perception, and abilities, so you can gain a deeper knowledge of the challenges, behaviors, and unique care needs of this tragic impairment. The event takes place on November 9th from 2 to 4 p.m., but is broken into 30-minute sessions. Schedule yours by calling the COA at 781-294-8220. We live in an area rich with storied history. On November 3rd, expand your knowledge of local Jewish history at the Duxbury Free Library's presentation, Jewish History of New England and Genealogical Research Tips. Dr. Adina Newman will provide an outline of key events and trends specific to New England's Jewish population from the colonial period to the present. There will also be resources available for anyone interested in conducting their own Jewish genealogical research in the New England states. The event takes place from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Register via the library's website. Grief is an isolating world which can consume all joy and feel never-ending. We went on the local scene to the Plymouth Public Library to talk to grief specialist Gary Sturgis, who shared his story of loss and journey to healing and a sense of peace.
Welcome to the Surviving Grief workshop. I'm happy you're here. I'm just sad that you need to be.
We had a patron who came in and she said, you know, finding an in-person grief group was really challenging. Then I chimed in that last year I had lost both my mom and my dad. So I know kind of what she was going through. And when Gary approached me, I said, okay, this might be a perfect opportunity to bring the topic of surviving grief and grief counseling to the library.
And that's what I do. I talk about the stuff that nobody else wants to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about grief, loss, or death.
I lost my spouse in 2014 to stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is a fancy term for really bad cancer. I was left with really just grief, and I didn't know what to do with that or where to put it. So he would always say to me, it's all good, you know, if I was worried about something. So that's actually on his gravestone, it's all good. So I always think of him when I think of it's all good. When he died, I felt like the loneliness was so intense. And I always say that a future with only sadness and sorrow in it is a pretty grim prospect. And I think that it's important to tell your story, like tell it over and over again. And what the problem is, and I call it like the time after the casseroles stop coming. Nobody wants to hear the story anymore. And sometimes the only people that really want to hear those stories are people that also lost a piece of their heart. I joined a grief support group. I also did one-to-one grief counseling. And I became a volunteer bereavement facilitator. So I was a peer facilitator. I would sit in the group and I would tell my story to them and kind of share what I did and how I survived my grief. And then as that went on, I progressed into pretty much getting promoted to doing the groups on my own. My workshop was born out of the fact that I was hearing the same thing over and over in the grief support groups that I was facilitating. So I decided, you know, this would be really helpful, I think, to almost put it into like a grief 101 type of thing. And because I think when we fear something if we don't know about it. So if we don't understand grief, we fear it more. C.S. Lewis said in his book, A Grief Observed, no one ever told me that grief was so like fear. Even though grief is unique to everyone and everyone's relationship is unique, there's still a lot of the same similarities that we all go through when we lose someone we love. If someone was new to a loss and asked me like what my advice would be, I would say seek help. You know, whether it's a support group, whether it's a one-on-one, you know, a person that specializes in therapy on grief and loss or trauma, because a lot of people suffer trauma as well. Hope Floats in Kingston, which is a health and wellness center. They do everything from grief support groups. I do my workshops there. They have guest speakers that come in. They have yoga classes. They have a kids club. Just a lot of great resources there. I also always tell people definitely, again, seek a specialist in grief counseling or even read books. I have a book called Surviving Grief 365 Days a Year, so you read one daily reflection for every day of the year. I also have Coping with Grief During the Holidays workshop. The thing about holidays when you're grieving is usually the anticipation of the day is actually worse than the actual day. So when the day comes, you realize that this day pretty much sucks just like all the other days do. But people struggle with the holidays because holidays are supposed to be a happy time, you know, and if someone is missing from that happy time, it puts a whole new twist on it. So what I try to share with them in the holiday workshops is I try to give them coping skills for what to do, what not to do. It's all about what's going to bring you comfort. I always tell people if they remember one thing from my workshop, it's if someone asks you to do something, ask yourself this question: is doing this going to make me feel better, or is doing this going to make me feel worse? And that will usually help you through whatever you're doing, including the holidays. I feel like when I do not only a support group, but the workshops as well, is when all these people are gathered together and they're all there because of a loss, it's I call it like you find your tribe. You know, you find these people that get what you're going through, understand what you're going through, and you can talk about your dead person without feeling bad about it. There's no cure for grief, but if there was a cure for grief, I would say it's motion. And what I mean by motion is moving forward. So when someone dies, like we want to move back. I always use the analogy of like whitewater rafting. You know, you're in this raft and you're going down this rapid river. What do you do if you fall out of that raft? What's the procedure to do? Well, your gut instinct is to struggle. I gotta get back. I'm getting pulled down. But what they tell you is cross your arms, cross your chest, put your feet up, and let the current just take you down. And it's the same way for grief. You know, if you start trying to go back, you're gonna get stuck. So the only way to get through the grief and to get through the pain is to work through it. And I call it the grief work. And to do the grief work, that's how you move forward from the loss. It's motion. It's that forward motion.
If you are living in grief and could use support, Hope Floats Healing and Wellness Center in Kingston, where Gary is a support group facilitator, is here for you at hopefloatswellness.org. Cemeteries remind us where history has been and where many of us are going. On November 6th from 2 to 3:30 p.m., join archivist and historian Carolyn Ravenscroft for a mobility-impaired accessible cemetery tour at the Mayflower Cemetery in Duxbury. Carolyn will share a general history of the cemetery featuring its most famous or infamous residents. The tour will stay on paved paths so those who use a wheelchair or walker are welcome. Tickets are required. Reserve yours through the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society's website. If your neighborhood is more dead-end street than trick-or-treat, your littlest goblins and ghouls can still haunt the Plymouth YMCA for their spooktacular trunk-or-treat event on October 28th. This family-fun outdoor experience starts at 5:30 p.m. Visit the Old Colony YMCA Plymouth Eventbrite page to get your tickets and find out more. Tax season is never far enough away, and the AARP is looking to expand its team of volunteers. AARP Foundation Tax Aid provides in-person and virtual tax assistant free of charge with a special focus on taxpayers who are 50 and over and low to moderate income. There are many roles to choose from: tax preparers, technical coordinators, and more. If you're interested, call the Kingston COA at 781-585-0511 to speak to a local coordinator. Did you know that cranberries were used to dye clothing by Native people in a practice adopted by newcomers to this area during colonial times? This crimson-hued fruit has a long history and role in our state's culture, livelihood, and culinary traditions. On November 11th and 12th, join Massachusetts Cranberry and Plymouth Patuxent Museums in the jointly presented festival CranFest, a 2-day celebration of the cranberry, featuring live music, exhibits, and activities for all ages, and happening from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the beautiful Plymouth Patuxent Museums. Find out more about this crantastic event by visiting plymouth.org. We build our democracy with our votes, and on Tuesday, November 8th of this year, you get to make your voice heard in the United States 2022 elections. During this midterm election year, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives and 35 of the 100 seats in the Senate will be contested. Here in Massachusetts, in addition to the slate of elected officials, including governor, attorney general, and state representatives, there are 4 binding ballot measures. Briefly, 4 questions: whether to add an additional tax on personal income, change dental insurance regulation, expand alcohol licenses, and a question on driver's license eligibility. A yes vote on question 1, known as both the millionaire's tax and the Fair Share Amendment, would add an additional 4% state income tax on any state resident's personal income over $1 million. A yes on question 2 would force dental insurers to spend at least 83% of revenue from premiums on patient care or provide refunds. There is currently no minimum threshold written into state law. A yes on question 3 would double the amount of liquor licenses any company or individual can hold to 18. It would also prohibit purchase of alcohol at self-checkout stations. A yes on question 4 signifies approval of a state law passed in May of 2022. Under this new law, people who have migrated to the United States illegally would be able to apply for a driver's license starting July 1st, 2023, if they can provide the Registry of Motor Vehicles with requested identification. All 4 ballot measures have sparked considerable debate, as they should in a functioning democracy. To learn more about each of these ballot questions, visit the Secretary of State's website at www.sec.state.ma.us. Learn about the potential fiscal impact of each of these questions and arguments by organizations and individuals both for and against these measures. Your vote is your voice. Make it count on November 8th. And that's what's good and good to know this week in our community. If you'd like to see more content from the local scene, follow us on YouTube and social media at The Local Scene by PACTV. That wraps this episode. I'm Elizabeth. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. We are grateful for your attention. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to The Local Scene here and share everywhere. Thank you, friends.